Hi, everyone. My name's Jordan, and I'm part of the podcast team over at Spotify, where I look after partner management. My team and I work hand in hand with the world's leading podcasters, and from that, we have a ton of learnings to share. Spotify is the #1 podcast platform globally. We're in over 170 markets and home to some of the biggest and most interesting podcasts in the world. Whether you're an established podcast or an emerging creator, we're committed to building the tools and resources to help your show succeed and create meaningful connections with your audience. There's over 100 million podcast listeners on Spotify. That's a lot of people looking for their next favorite show. With this series, we'll help you take advantage of all the tools Spotify has to offer to help you grow. Things like video podcasting, fan engagement tools, and so much more. We'll take you behind the scenes to see how our products come together, and also shine a light on some of the most exciting creators who are the real experts on how to use our features best. We know creating great content is just the first step. It's also important to better understand your listeners. And most importantly, what steps can you take to ensure your content resonates with your fans? Who better to hear it from than some of the most exciting creators in the industry? We're going to get insights into their experiences, including some helpful do's and don'ts you can put into practice today. We want to make sure this series covers the questions you want answered, so please hit us up on social. We thought that a great way to kick off the series would be to look at some of the features that are available to you right now through Spotify for Podcasters. Whether you host your show with us or elsewhere, we have the tools to help you make the most out of your show on Spotify. To go a bit deeper into Spotify for Podcasters, we're going to be joined remotely by our head of podcast product, Maya Prohovnik. Maya, over to you.
Thanks so much, Jordan. I'm Maya Prohovnik, and as Jordan said, I run Spotify's podcast product team. My team is responsible for Spotify for Podcasters, and we also work really closely with the teams at Spotify who work on Spotify recommendations, the podcast listening experience, and podcast advertising. I'm so excited to be here today to talk to you a little bit about our vision and how you can grow your show on Spotify. I've been working on podcasts for almost a decade now, and I also have a few shows of my own, so solving problems for podcasters is something I'm really passionate about. There are 2 ways to use Spotify for Podcasters. If you're making a new show, we offer unlimited free hosting to make it really easy for you to get up and running. This lets you manage everything for your podcast in one place, including distribution to all other listening platforms. If you already have a show that's hosted with another service, you can still access all of our features that let you manage your show and your audience on Spotify. Spotify provides a ton of really helpful analytics about your audience that you won't find anywhere else. You can, of course, see things like your plays and audience size and number of followers, but you can also see things like the demographics of your listeners, so their aggregated age, gender, and location. You can see how many people are listening to how much of your episodes, and lots more. We've also built a bunch of features to enable you to connect directly with the people who are listening to your podcast. You can add things like Q&A and polls to any of your episodes, which let you get feedback and also get to know your fans. I really love hearing from the people who listen to my shows. There's really nothing more fulfilling than knowing that what you're saying is resonating. We're also always working on great ways for creators to take advantage of all the features we're building for listeners to find their next favorite podcast on Spotify. You can create previews for your episodes, add chapters to help listeners find what they're looking for, take advantage of automatic transcripts, and customize your show page on Spotify so it can stand out even better to attract potential listeners. And of course, if your podcast is part of your business, Spotify has all kinds of ways for you to make money, whether that's from advertisers or by offering bonus content to your paying subscribers.
Thanks, Maya. That was super interesting, and it's great to see the tools in more detail. It's one thing to hear from us about these features, but you might be wondering how you can use them best to expand your reach and engagement. Repping teenager therapy is the amazing Gael Aitor. Before Gael joins us, let's take a closer look at teenager therapy and their rise to the top.
My name is Gael Aitor, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Teenager Therapy podcast. One day I got tired of listening to music, and so I started scrolling on Spotify, and I came across a section that said podcast. And so eventually I started just looking around, listening to some here and there, didn't really like them. And then I stumbled across one called Couples Therapy, and I really enjoyed it. It was just them 2 talking about their issues. And so I thought, I feel like it'd be kind of cool if that was a thing, but for teenagers. Even after the first episode, over the next 2-3 days, we were already at a couple thousand listens. The podcast kept growing and growing and growing.
Okay, it's so amazing to see how the last couple of years have played out for you guys. Thanks so much for being here. Tell us about the origin story of teenager therapy.
Whew, yeah, it goes a long way back. We're almost approaching our 5-year anniversary. We started teenager therapy in September of 2018. I was 15 years old and I was a sophomore in high school. And so I asked 4 of my friends, do you guys want to start a podcast? And we recorded the first episode just in our bedroom, sitting around a camera. And we thought, okay, let's talk about our issues, I guess.
And how did you even know what to say into a microphone? How did you guys even figure out how to do it?
Everyone loves talking about themselves. So as 15-year-olds, it was actually quite easy to just go into a camera and say, wow, this friend is really annoying and this is why. The only thing that is a struggle is being open and vulnerable. And now we've realized that vulnerability and authenticity is one of the strongest values of our show.
And how long did it take before you realized you guys really had something to say that was resonating with your audience?
It was 2020, March, the pandemic happened. And this was as things were picking up steam, we were getting traction, the press was noticing us a little bit. But the pandemic, I think, really helped people realize the power of what we were doing, that teens are connecting online. And when the world went online, they were coming to us for guidance, for comfort more than anything. And I think that it really resonated during that year. That's when our mission really struck a chord. The New York Times wrote about us. Later that year, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle said, can we go on your show for World Mental Health Day? We were like, yes. And we did an episode with them. That was unbelievable. I mean, that I can't even dream about that. That wouldn't have even been a goal because it's so unimaginable. I've accidentally stumbled into podcasting as a career. I never would have thought I would be a podcaster. But I guess now I am a producer, I suppose. And I realized I really love audio. More than anything in my life, I love words. I really express myself through speaking and writing. And I think podcast was the perfect medium for me. I've never been too big into film or any other formats, but the intimacy of audio is something that keeps me coming back. I love the way that you can be authentically yourself. I love how intimate it is. And I really love the personal feeling you get when you listen to a podcast. We have a sentimental, sensitive, and sensible audience. I really think we have a very special one because they've grown up with us. Another aspect that we love is getting Q&A questions. Mm-hmm. We used to have our audience members send in voice notes, and we would have some members that would actually listen in, and they would send in voice notes every week. And so we would catch up every week, and that was really nice. Don't expect to see instant success. It's a slow burn. Podcast is a hard medium. You have to be consistent. And 2, you really have to know and enjoy what you're talking about. And you have to decide, what is the end goal? And is what I'm talking about sustainable? For us, we can talk about our issues for years on end, but it's a lot more difficult if you're writing a scripted show. So I would say really start planning what you want your podcast to be about. It doesn't have to be a fully scripted, produced show. If it's personal to you, if it's meaningful to you, that's more important than trying to create something new and innovative. If you can do it consistently, if you can do it well, and if you could enjoy yourself while you're doing it, I think you'll have some kind of success.
Thanks so much. That was awesome. Up next, we're going to go into the control room, and you can show me how you're using Spotify for podcasters. Okay, you've got your profile open. When did you add your trailer to the podcast page on Spotify, and what was the thought process behind that?
So we actually added it pretty early on. As soon as the feature went live, we were like, okay, this is something we should use.
You guys have been using video podcasting for quite a while. Tell me a little bit about how you started using that on Spotify and what the impact has been on the show.
We always knew we wanted to use video. It's been one of the most important features for our show because I think it's important, especially for young audiences that are digitally native, that they want to connect the face to the voice. And more than anything, our show's kind of emotional. So sometimes when you see us going through an emotional moment, people get engaged. They really want to engage and they want to look at how we're expressing ourselves. So video was a crucial component in that. But other than that, it's also really good for social media. Obviously, content is king, and the more that you can distribute to other platforms, the better. Audio only was limiting, and we knew that if we really wanted to kickstart our growth, video was a big component of that.
So every episode has video, and then you're cutting clips and putting them on social to bring in new audiences.
Exactly. That's routine.
And what video equipment do you use, and what advice do you give podcasters just starting out and thinking about making the jump into video?
At first, we started using a camera, classic DSLR. We had one in the background, and we thought, let's just bring it in and use it. The problem with that, it could only record 15 minutes at a time. So there was so many episodes where it kept shutting off. And we're like, okay, we need to invest in a camcorder.
All right, let's shift to analytics. So take me through a typical day of looking at your analytics profile. What are the things that you keep your eye on as you release new episodes?
Yeah, so analytics, we tend to look at them whenever we really want to understand what episodes are performing well and what we should do moving forward. So even as I go into the Spotify for Podcasters dashboard, first thing I do is let's go to the analytics page. You get to see all the episodes and how they're performing. I do a quick glance. Let's just see over the last 30 days, what episodes got higher than average views and what episodes got lower than usual. And so that at first glance just gives us a good insight as to what topics are performing well. I might think about why that is. Sometimes we do experimental topics and even we get creative with the titles. We switch them around. We frame them in a very general theme or sometimes we do a little bit more specific. Recently, we've been exploring with making titles more question-based. How do I, how to, how this. And I think that makes it easier for new listeners to approach
Interesting.
it. Yeah, so that's a really interesting tip. It's an instant value add. You know what you're getting. You know what to expect. After that, I actually go in and I just click on the individual episodes. And if I want to explore how an episode is performing, I might look at the retention. I like seeing, okay, are people listening all the way through? When are they dropping? And what episodes aren't getting as high retention? And that does help guide a lot of our topics.
So as you know, there have been a lot of interactivity tools that have launched recently on Spotify for podcasters, and you guys have been using them in a very new and interesting way. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you're using Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A is one of our favorite features. We have so much fun with it. It is so easy to just add a deeper level of engagement with your audience. And Q&A allows us to remind ourselves that there's people that are listening and they're having thoughts and opinions while listening to the episode. So we tend to ask our audience different questions that relate to the topic. More than anything, we like to focus on their experiences because one, it gives us insight as to what they're actually thinking about the episode and the topic. But two, it makes the audience feel like they're a part of the conversation, which I think is really important for those fans that want to engage more. Something I've noticed is when we ask more general questions, we get less responses than if we're very specific with what we're asking. What was your favorite thing when you do this? Instead of, how do you feel about general topic? The more specific you get with the questions, the better responses you get.
And are you pinning those questions to the profile so the audience can see the answers? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, we do. One of my favorite prompts was when we asked our audience to write a love letter to themselves. And so we got so many responses of people writing love letters on this podcast comment section, essentially. I mean, yeah, it's a way for them to realize, whoa, there's other people engaging with this. I think that's powerful knowing, oh, whoa, there's other people listening.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you guys use polls and what you're getting out of them?
Again, I love using polls. If you notice anything, I love gathering data and just kind of getting different types of responses and engagement from our audience. I think it's so fun, it's so interesting, and it adds so much interactivity that is missing in podcasts. For polls, we really love using them to just get fun responses and get a quick insight as to what our audience feels and thinks about certain topics. One of my favorite ones that we've done is when we asked our audience, what's your combined family income? Because we did an episode about income inequality and just our own personal finance situation. So it was interesting seeing how our audience relates and who we're actually speaking to, because it allows us to frame the way we speak about certain topics and explore different topics, because we realized, whoa, there's this demographic that we didn't think we had a high percentage of, but it turns out we do.
So obviously you guys are at the top of the charts, but for smaller podcasts with just a few listeners that are really thinking about whether or not to invest in Q&A and polls, what advice would you give them?
I say do it. One, you have nothing to lose, so why not? But more than anything, it starts building that sense of community amongst your loyal fans. And I think as a fan, it just makes you think, okay, my voice matters. I have a connection to this host. I have a connection to this podcast, and that's huge.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Gael. We really appreciate it. So awesome to see how you and your co-hosts are using the platform.
Thank you.
We've covered a lot today. So if you take away 5 things, it should be number 1. Whether you're hosted on Spotify for podcasters or elsewhere, this is a place for you to take your show to the next level. Number 2, everything starts with understanding your audience. Your dashboard is your home base. Get comfortable with analytics. I promise it's worth it. Number 3, hear from your audience right where they're listening. Take advantage of Q&A and polls to deepen your relationship with your fans, or even to get some fresh ideas for your content. Number 4, video podcasting is here to stay. Upload video onto Spotify for podcasters to add a whole new dimension to your show, and you can use clips to grow your audience. And finally, number 5, All these tools are awesome ways to level up your show. But what's most important is creating something that feels authentic, that you believe in. So create the podcast you wish existed. Don't forget to head over to our video podcast episode on Spotify and respond to our very own Q&A to let us know what you want us to cover off in future episodes. We'll even pin our favorite responses to our profile. I want to say a huge thank you to Teenager Therapy for joining us for this episode of Spotify for Podcasters Masterclass. Be sure to let us know what you think on social, and we'll see you again soon.